Everybody, please welcome again Sergeant Guerra.
All right. I thought it was going to be one of those deals where like one person claps. I enjoy good awkward moments, so it wouldn't faze me one bit. I'm going to start my little clock here because, first off, I thank Lori so much for having me. It's truly an honor for me to be here. This is my first Smile Conference. I'm loving every minute of it so far. But when she told me I only had 50 minutes to present, I'm like, man, I can introduce myself for 50 minutes. That's going to be a challenge. But this is a message that I've been able to share across the state, down in Texas, and hopefully across the nation throughout the rest of this year with several more conferences booked. But it is a very timely message. It's something that we've heard a lot today. And my hope is that today I'll be able to cause you to think about the subject matter of trust and how we build it and how we break it so that you can then build your own strategies that are targeted towards your community. So, who I am, that's me, 10 years, Victoria Police Department. I've already told you because I was on the panel, spent most of my career in crime prevention. I'm also the public relations officer, a former PIO. I'm the supervisor of the Auto Crimes Task Force. And the thing that I think makes me a little bit different is I put myself through marketing school. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that I learned in marketing so that I can employ those in my law enforcement world. The reason that I put myself through marketing school is because what do marketers do? What is their end goal? It's to obtain buy-in, right? And that's actually obtaining buy-in by getting somebody to pull out their money and throw it at whatever product it is that they're trying to sell, right? If what they're trying to do is convince people to buy into something to the point where they'll actually give up their money, well then why can't those techniques work for us in law enforcement? Because ultimately, isn't that what we're trying to do? We're trying to obtain buy-in, right? We want people to buy into our message. We want people to buy into whatever thought process it is that we think will help protect them or guide them through life. Where am I from? Victoria, Texas. Now, you heard me on the panel. I was a bit disparaging to my town, but I love my town. If you don't know where Texas is, it's that great big state. It's down there. I'm assuming everyone knows where it's at, so I didn't show a full United States map. But Victoria, we are the biggest thing going in the middle of nowhere. As you see, I'm about 2 hours away from Houston, 2 hours away from Austin, 2 hours away from San Antonio, an hour and a half from Corpus, and 30 miles from the coast. They call us the crossroads of Texas. The population of my city is a little over 63,000. That is the official population. However, there's a couple things that come into play. When you're the biggest thing going in the middle of nowhere, we have a lot of people that travel into our city for employment, and we're close to the border, so we have a lot of people that aren't documented that live within our city as well. It's estimated that our population gets up to over 100,000 during the day. It's important that you understand a little bit of the demographics of where I come from. So like I said on the panel, when you see what we've been able to do in Victoria, you can do it anywhere. If you can do it in conservative, rural Texas, you can do it anywhere, truly, with the right strategy. What am I known for? That's what I'm known for. That's some of our most popular videos that are out there. A lot of people know me or may know my videos, but they don't know me. So chances are you've seen some of the videos that are out there, but I'm not here to talk about that today. The learning objectives for today, we're going to examine the state of trust in the U.S. criminal justice system. We're going to really break it down and look at it, discuss the substance of trust, what's it made of, identify the internal and external factors that stress or break trust, and learn techniques and strategies for rebuilding trust through social media. First, a question. By a show of hands, yes or no? And it's okay if you disagree with me, it's okay, all right? How many of you think we're succeeding in the battle for public trust? Raise your hand. Succeeding. 1. I'm not going to point you out. 2, 3. Oh my God. Well, 4. Okay. So we've got a few people that think we're succeeding. How many people think we're failing in the battle for public trust? Okay, more of the room thinks we're failing. There's an argument to both sides, I'll say this. But obviously, would I have been flown out here and would I be up here talking to you about the nature of trust if I thought we were succeeding? So my stance is that I believe we're failing, and I want to preface that by saying I also recognize and believe that we're making great strides in the right direction. We've opened our eyes to a lot of things that before we were somewhat blind to, and we're heading in the right direction. My stance is that it's just not simply quite enough yet, and I'll get into more of that in a minute. Another question. Oh, before I get to that, I like this quote. Trust is like the air we breathe. When it's present, nobody really notices. But when it's absent, everybody notices. That comes from Warren Buffett, one of the most trusted and esteemed businessmen in the United States. He's like a gajillionaire, I think. Another question. In this day and age, is good police work enough to maintain our credibility? Who says yes? Good police work is enough to maintain our credibility or to build trust. Who says no? Good. At least we agree there. Good police work is not enough. The reason that I believe that we're failing and continue to fail in the battle for public trust, despite the ground that we have gained, is a couple reasons. You know what they say about statistics, right? For every statistic that I use to prove something, you can find another statistic to disprove it. So I don't put a whole lot of merit in statistics, but I did want to provide these to you. From the latest Gallup poll, which was done in 2015 in the United States, they found that confidence in the United States police criminal justice system is at a 22-year low. Now, if you look at the graph there, you see it's only fluctuating by a few points, right? But what I want you to see about the graph is the last time that we were at this level where people said, no, I don't have confidence in the police, was in 1993. What's significant about that? About a year and a half before this survey was done, there was an event that took place. Anybody know what it was? Rodney King, 1991, right? Now, why then did it take from 1991 to 1993 to see that drop off in public trust? Plain and simple. It's because it's exactly where we are right now based off of the Ferguson event. It takes a little bit of time for people to create the narrative, right? That we're broken, that something is wrong. And that's when it gets the lowest. I'll be really interested to see what their next poll shows for 2016. Oh, actually, their next one will be in 2017. Be interesting to see what it says. In addition, Transparency International does what's called a corruption barometer. Basically, it's just a poll. They ask people, hey, do you think these people are corrupt or not? And they do it on all these different industries, right? You have attorneys, you have the medical profession, the criminal justice system, the media, and then us, law enforcement. In 2013, which was the most recent one, there'll be another one coming out for the United States here in 2016. 42% of the people that responded said they believe we are corrupt or extremely corrupt. That's a little bit less than I don't have confidence in them, right? They are corrupt or extremely corrupt. What does the word corruption mean? It means we're poisoned, right? We are poisoned, we're broken. This matters. Also, because statistics, right? You can find a statistic to disprove what I'm saying, but I did a Google search, law enforcement reform. I just wanted to see how many people were talking about it. As you see there, 101 million results returned. And I thought, okay, but that's pulling in all the results for the word law, the word reform. That's from all time, right? Let's narrow it down a little bit. United States law enforcement reform in the past year, and what it doesn't show you is I also did that verbatim. It returned 1.5 million, over 1.5 million results, people talking about United States law enforcement reform in the past year. If people are talking about it that much, are we winning? If the conversation is on how broken we are, and what does reform mean? It literally means to reform, to take something that is broken and rebuild it from its core. People are searching for answers because they believe we're broken and they don't believe that we're capable or willing to fix ourselves. This matters. A last one. Look, this isn't a political thing. If you're a Hillary supporter, more power to you. It's not about that. What I want you to take note of here is, do anybody remember this statement? Hillary is building her platform. One key of it is that she believes there is systemic racism running rampant in the criminal justice system. Anybody remember that one? Okay, newsflash for you. Do presidential candidates that are running for the highest office in the country build their platforms on messages that they believe only relates to a few people in the country? No, right? They build their platforms on the topics that they believe relate to hopefully the majority of the people that they're trying to obtain votes from, right? Systemic racism. If you're a racist, please raise your hand. Got one Nazi in the back. Okay, nice to see you, sir. I'm kidding. Nobody raised their hand, right? Anybody get offended by that statement, systemic racism? Man, I do. The key is she's building a platform off of it. But despite all of this, despite the numbers, despite the statistics, there's one comment that shows up when an officer does something good or when an officer does something bad. And this is truly what drew my thought process in to whether or not people trust us. Does anybody know what the comment is? If you can see it up there, don't cheat. Anybody? Shows up when they do something good or when they do something bad. Not all cops are bad. Anybody recognize that one? Yes or no? You hear that one all the time? Right? I actually save it every time I see it come across. People say it in different ways, but it's all the same message. There are more good police than bad. It's good to know there's still good cops out there. Not all police are bad, just a few. Let's really think about why people are making that statement. Why would someone be compelled to make the statement, not all cops are bad? They've been told. Maybe they believe it, or maybe they believe their audience believes it, right? But think about the statement itself. Doesn't it imply that most of us are bad? That most of us are bad people. And it's only the ray of light that every once in a while pops up through the weeds and you get to see the cop that still has the character that people thought that we had, right? It implies that most of us are bad. How many of you got into this business to be one of the bad guys? I didn't, and it offends me. This comment should offend you that we've allowed our industry to be taken hostage by the thought that most of us are bad. Because we're not. But why do people say it? Why don't they say, not all cops are good, right? Not all cops are good. Well, that's an accurate statement I can get behind. Anybody in here hate cops? Come on, you thinking of somebody, you're like, I really hate that guy. I really hate that guy, right? Come on. Do you love every cop you come into contact with? I don't. I can tell you right now. We don't even like ourselves, but yet we want the public at large that doesn't understand what we do to like and love us and trust us. So what is trust made of? I can't take credit for this concept. This concept comes from Stephen M. R. Covey, the son of Stephen R. Covey, who wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's a mouthful, by the way. This is his son, and he gave the best definition or explanation of trust that I've ever found. So I've taken this and I've tried to apply it to our industry and what we do for a living. What is trust made of, though? Most people will say, well, the foundation of trust is integrity, right? That's the most common thing that's said, right? Because can you have trust without integrity? I say yes, you can to a degree. And I'll make that argument in a minute. The foundation of trust, though, is action. All trust is built and broken through some action. All trust is built and broken through action. So without action, you can have the highest level of integrity, you can have the best intent, you can have all the skills in the world, but without action, you will do nothing to build trust with the people that you serve. So trust is the foundation. Out of the foundation comes the pillars of trust. And they can be broken down into 2 separate categories. Number 1, character. Your character is comprised of your integrity and your intent. Secondly is your competence. That's your capabilities and your results. Break it down and think about it. Is there anybody that you know that is just the sweetest person in the world? You don't believe they'd lie to you, but you don't want them doing heart surgery on you? Yes? No? You may trust them and trust their character, but what do you lack trust in? Their capabilities to perform the task that you need them to perform for you, right? How about, do you know other people, especially in policing, that are brilliant minds, fully capable, have skill sets, but you wouldn't trust them with your kids, right? Like you don't want to leave them alone when your wife is there with you? Anybody? Yes or no? So you can trust in people's capabilities, but doubt and have suspicion over their integrity. Are y'all in agreement with me still? So these are the pillars. I'm going to talk more about them here in a minute. But when all these things line up, trust becomes the shelter that protects us from harm. Think about it like that. If you don't have trust, whenever the world comes at you and there's a storm facing you, the storm of controversy, the storm of whether you did the right thing or you didn't, the storm of whether or not you were trained enough or whether you weren't, trust is your protection. If you do not have trust, you lose. So why is our character in question? Let's break it down. Why is our character in question? Let's start with integrity. Why do people question the integrity of us as law enforcement officers? If you believe that you possess integrity, raise your hand. Truly, if you believe you possess integrity, that you will do the right thing when nobody else knows that you're doing the right thing, raise your hand. And you know what? I believe you do as well. Why then is our integrity in question? I believe the first point, what is the simple answer though? Let me digress. What is the simple answer? Most people say, well, it's because of the media, right? Because the media and it's the media agenda. I'll talk about that. But bull crap. Guess what? And we all know this, right? The media doesn't control our story anymore. We had that excuse 10 years ago. Now we have direct access to those that we serve. And funny thing, I was talking about how people trust in the police. We're still one of the most trusted professions out there, hands down. The media, less than 30% of people reported they trust the media. We are more trusted than the media. But yet, we blame all of our problems on the media agenda. People trust us more than they do them. They're just better at telling a story than we are. I believe that the key reason that our integrity has been placed in question is not because we lack integrity, but because we have become a they. What do I mean by that? We are now judged, we are now valued as an entity, as a profession. Whenever somebody gets stopped and gets a ticket, who gave it to them? The police, right? Whenever an officer does something that is full of misconduct and it becomes viral and it's a huge story, who did that? The police, right? Is it officer this? Is it officer that? In some cases. But most commonly, what we have to understand is that we have allowed ourselves to be completely defined by our profession. Our profession teaches us what? It teaches us to assimilate to a degree, right? All the policies, we have to fall in line, you're expected to be a certain way. But it's also, in my argument, it's also been one of the things that's crippled us in our battle for public trust. Why? Because whenever you're judged based on what the entirety of your profession does, you can never win. An officer does something in California, rapes a young girl. He does it under the guise of the same oath that you and I took. Does that reflect on you? Does it? We all know it doesn't, but in the public eyes, does it? It absolutely does. Why? Because we have entered into a relationship, an intimate relationship with those that we serve. And when the entity violates that relationship, all those involved have to take part of that blame. And we have to work that much harder to get trust back. Secondly, police misconduct. I kind of led into it. But I did a search just the other day because I wanted to see what's the most recent things that'll come up. Because we have to quit denying that there are bad people doing bad things with our badges on. So this just the other day, April 9th, all I searched for was convicted cop. Retired Georgia cop convicted of molestation drinks poison as in the court as the verdict is announced. That one had a little twist to it. Ex-cop accused of raping girl 12 claims he only had voyeuristic interest in her. Former Miramar cop who stole liquor bottles sentenced to 6 months probation. Ex-Lima police officer sentenced in rape case. Man, you see all the rape that's coming across? I didn't filter these. These were just the most recent results. Sexual misconduct. This one, I supervised this guy directly before he went to Cy-Fair ISD. Former Cy-Fair ISD officer who asked to smell lick women's feet, sentenced. He's in prison now. Does that reflect on you and I? Yes, it does. It matters. It's damaged us. But what is the typical police response, right? Whenever we're held for the actions of these people, it's offensive to us, right? Anybody get offended by being lumped into that group? Anybody? I do. Don't lump me in with this guy. That's offensive to me. But then what happens? We break down communication even further, right? Because we take offense and then it becomes an us versus them type thing with our community, right? Well, y'all just don't understand. You don't understand and you don't appreciate us. And we damage ourselves further in our response to it. We need to accept that these things are taking place and understand why the public feels the way that they do when they see this, and then take steps to change the narrative. Misinformation. I don't have to go too deep into that, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. This isn't necessarily information based in guile, right? It's not that people are trying to put out the wrong information. There's just a lot of people that really don't know why we do what we do, so they're stabbing at it and they're putting out whatever information they can find. Our integrity is in question because the wrong information's out there. We're not putting the right information out there. The best example I can use, and I want to preface this by saying, look, I'm not deeply entrenched in this case. There may be people here that know more about it than I do. I'm going based off of limited knowledge and what I could find in my research. So if I'm wrong, forgive me, but I don't think I am. But if I am, tell me afterwards so that I can correct it. Darren Wilson. We all know that name, right? We all know that name. Somebody tell me something about Darren Wilson that doesn't involve Ferguson. Don't all run up here at once. We don't know, right? What I found interesting about Darren Wilson was that from everything I can find, I wanted to know what his personnel file looked like. There was nothing in it. Nothing, right? So whenever this event took place, there were people out there with the intent to define the character of this officer. Who was he? What was he about? Why? Because that was important into understanding the decisions that he made, right? Was he a violent type of person? You know, did he have a good track record? They were looking for that because they wanted to understand why the events that took place happened the way that they did. Understanding his character was a large part of that. There was nothing available. Nothing. Nothing about him. The first time you ever heard about Darren Wilson was this event. So there was a void left there of who is this guy and what's he about. You know what I found really interesting? Do you know how his character was ultimately defined after that event took place? Was mostly by witness testimony, where people came forward and said, hey, you know what? One time he stopped me and he was a real jerk. He cussed at me and he was mean. Look it up. I'm serious. But what was there to make the argument of anything otherwise? There was nothing, right? There was a void there. People were looking for a way to define what his character was about, and that's the best they could do. Well, he stopped me one time. He wasn't very nice. Darren Wilson, jerk. We can't leave a void. Anywhere you leave a void, you allow misinformation to fill it. And then the media agenda. There's no denying the media does have an agenda. But we have an agenda as well. Question for you. Are there more media outlets than law enforcement agencies? Who says yes? Do you think there are overwhelmingly more law enforcement agencies than media outlets? I believe there are, and I'm talking legit media outlets, not your blogger or whatever, you know. We outnumber them. And now we have direct access to their audience. We should be able to tell the story. Secondly, intent. Why is our intent in question? Is there somebody that you know they're a good person or whatever, but it just seems like, you know, they've got a hidden agenda, you know, for what they're asking you to do? Maybe you don't necessarily completely distrust them, but you just know that what they're telling you on face level doesn't line up with what they're really seeking to get. Do you trust that person completely? I don't. Negative contact business. Think about the nature of our business. We all know this, right? When was the last time somebody pulled somebody over to give them a high five because they drive awesome? Anybody? I don't know what y'all do outside Texas, but we don't do that down there, right? You don't, right? You show up when things have gone wrong. You're talking to people because they're a victim, witness, or suspect, right? Most of the time. It's negative in nature for us to be there to begin with. So just by the very nature of when people contact us, they can question our intent. Are we truly there because we care about them? Or are we there because it's what we get paid to do? Expectations versus reality. Do we meet the expectation that the public has placed on us? How many of you feel that we consistently meet the expectations the public's placed on us? I don't think we do. We fall short there often. Causes them to question our intent. A lack of transparency. This is the big buzzword these days in law enforcement, right? Oh, we're going to be transparent. We're going to be transparent. Really? Really, are we? Come on. Let's be honest here. What does transparency mean? And when you're not transparent, it causes people to question your intent. Think about it. How many of you are married? Anybody in here? All right. You're there with your significant other. All of a sudden, bing, boom, bing, boom, text messages start going off, and you see a little smirk, you know? So you say, oh, what's so funny? Who are you texting? Oh, I'm not. You going to have problems in your relationship or not? Right? Are you going to question their intent? Now, what if it's completely, there's no malice involved? What if they're trying to plan a surprise party for you, right? And they don't want you to know it's truly in your best interest, but they hide it from you. What do you perceive on your end? Is there distrust building between you? Is there a violation of the relationship taking place? Are we truly transparent? Again, I fall back to, well, they just don't understand. Or, when do we most commonly really need to be transparent? It's when we're under the spotlight, right? Because somebody's done something that has caused a lot of attention to us or our departments. Now, we all know why we don't just, boom, here's all the information. Here's what happened. Yeah, our officer shot this guy. You know, he didn't want to, but he did it. He shot him. We don't just throw it all out there because the officer has a process that they have to go through, right? The investigation, we don't want them to be tried in the court of public opinion. So what's our standard go-to? Well, we can't release that information due to an ongoing investigation. Okay, fine. What would the harm be in explaining exactly why it is we can't release that information? We can't release that information because if we do, this is what could happen. Furthermore, in our event, whenever we went national in Texas for our officer that tased the 76-year-old guy, in looking in that event, it was a huge deal. But there's always something. You always have opportunities for transparency if you look for them, right? Now, obviously, we couldn't just come out and give all the why he did what he did and whether or not his use of force was justified. We couldn't do that, but there were a couple things that we could look at. Number one, his video starts and you hear the Good Times radio, and it's some really profane rap song. And it's coming from the in-car video. It's catching up. He has it blaring. It's crazy, really profane rap song. We're allowed to listen to whatever music we want on duty, but it was captured on video. Furthermore, he did not have his body mic on, basically so that we could hear what he was saying on the traffic stop. So you have the traffic stop take place. You can see an argument unfolding, but you can't hear what's being said, but it's all playing out as our young officer tases a 76-year-old guy to a rap ballad. The public latched onto that and said, oh, he must have been hyped up on stuff, da-da-da-da-da. What would the harm have been? And likewise, what kind of trust could we have built if we had come out and we had said, hey, look, we can't talk about the use of force incident at this time. We will eventually. But right now, there are a couple things that we want to set the record straight on and identify what our stance is. First and foremost, we understand that it's very unprofessional for this music to be the soundtrack of this incident, and it's unfortunate that it took place this way. Additionally, there are pieces of the puzzle that we can't put together because our officer violated policy and did not have his body mic on. This is a clear violation of our policy, so now we're left to answer some questions. Is it the truth? Is that the truth? Yes, it is. Do you think that the public would see that and say, well, you know what? It's not like they're just throwing up a thin blue veil. Anybody heard that term? The thin blue line, this thing I wear here, we all know what it means, and it's this great symbol of pride for us. Do you know how a lot of the public perceives it? It's the line that we hold to protect each other from the consequences of our wrongdoing. So by immediately coming out and identifying the indefensible and saying, this was a violation of our policy, we'll release additional information regarding the use of force incident later. What message does that send the public? Hey, we're giving you what we can. And we're telling you the truth, whether that's in defense of our officer or whether that's identifying his shortcomings. Does that make sense? There are opportunities for transparency in everything that we face. We just have to identify them and attack them. Low morale. Man, can low morale cause people to question your intent? Maybe you really do care about them, but you're beat down by the job. Maybe you've been working every day and haven't had any days off because you can't hire people quick enough to fill the spots that you have. Maybe you're frustrated because you know you're going to show up and you're taking that report and you know there's nothing that you can do to truly help them beyond that point. Do people see that? Right? We deal with crisis every day. It's our normal, but it's not normal to them. We show up when things have gone terribly wrong in their life, and what do they see from us? Right? But we call it professionalism. I have a gigantic personality, but how well do you think my personality lends itself to straight up patrol work? Really and truthfully. I'm going to tell you now how well it does. I got complained on one time because I went to an assault call and the victim's name was Shimon. First thing I thought of was Michael Jackson. Shimon, right? I was killing myself and having a good old time whenever I would sneak in. Shimon, over here and talk to me. Shimon, now, calm down. She didn't find it that funny. It didn't present itself the way that I was hoping it would in the midst of a crisis. So I learned I had to dial it back and I had to present that image of professionalism. But what do we send? What message does that send to people? Do I care about you? Do I care about you? And they want us to care about them. Where I'm going with this relies on building our character as individuals once more. A person's character, once developed, becomes the armor that protects and the standard that inspires. I believe that to be true more than just about anything in my life. A person's character, once developed, becomes the armor that protects and the standard that inspires. Stephen R. Covey. If you can't tell, I'm a fan of his. Competence. Why is our competence in question? Why do people question our capabilities? I believe first and foremost, who are we allowing to define what good police work is? Who have we allowed to define that and set that standard? Who knows what good police work is? We do. And only the people that do it can readily recognize it and understand what makes it good, right or wrong. Someone from the outside may be able to look at something on the surface and see, okay, that's good police work, but it's us on the inside that truly know this is what was good about it. This is what rose to the top. Who's defining good police work? We aren't. We must do a better job of defining what good police work is, what it looks like, and what makes it good at its very core. So that people can identify a standard, and then when they see that standard, either on the low side or on the high side, they will know, wait, there's a very clear standard for what good police work is, and that officer fell below it. Does that make sense? Do you understand? Even within our own departments, we have 4 platoons that operate, and from each platoon, they rotate shifts, right? From each platoon, the way that we police, even though we have all these general orders and policies and everything, the way that we police varies greatly. Anybody else? Even within your own department, you see a lot of varying degrees of what good police work is, what the standard is. Imagine on the national level and even global level. And any time you have varying definitions of what good police work is, you have confusion. And anytime you have confusion, you have distrust. We must clarify what good police work is and what makes it good. A lack of training, I won't go into that, but you understand. We have an officer out there that does something and he doesn't do it the right way. Could be because he's just simply not trained. A lack of equipment, a lack of manpower. And then the all-dreaded CSI effect. You know what I'm talking about, right? People expect us to be capable of a lot more than we actually are. Anybody got their DNA kit with them? No? People are amazed in my area whenever I tell them, you know, we'll have people that commit crimes and they bleed, and it's like, oh, they bled, we've got them, right? And then I have to break down. Well, hold on, we've got their blood. In our area, it takes 18 to 24 months to get the results back. Okay, on DNA, and that's on your highest crime cases, like your murders, your assaults. Guess where your burglary of a vehicle goes? Way down here. And then on top of that, we got to hope that their DNA is in a system that we can match it up to, right? And they're like, oh, really? But people will distrust us if they have expectations that we're capable of things that we're not realistically capable of. So we have to clarify and be very clear. This is what we can do. And we will do what we can truly do to the best of our ability. And then your results. Do you know anybody that is a great guy, has great capabilities, has good intentions, but doesn't get a goddamn thing done? Anybody? Do you trust that person? Is that the person you want to turn over your deadline to? We got to produce results. They have to line up with what we say we're about. So we have to clearly identify these are our standards, these are our values, this is what we consider and define to be good police work, and then here are the results to go along with it and show you that we're walking the walk that we say we are. If it wasn't in the media, it didn't happen. Does good police work happen in your department every single day? Yes or no? Does every officer at some point throughout their day do some form of good policing? Yes, they do. Do we put it out there? No, we don't. Best case scenarios, results can also hurt you at times. Now, if you're the person in here, this isn't a knock on you. You did a great job. Anybody seen the stories, though, of where officers say, this guy was confronted with a deadly force scenario, and he didn't kill the guy, he shot the gun out of his hand. And they praise him, right? What's happening there? They're looking at a best case scenario result and saying, if he could do it, why can't you do it? What have we done to clarify and to show this is a best case scenario, but it's not realistic. It's not ideal. It's not something that we can do in any type of consistent manner. Right? The interesting thing is that we judge ourselves by what we feel capable of doing, while others judge us by what we've already done. I love that quote. Remember that. How many departments or agencies do you see that get into the controversial spotlight, right? And then they go into damage control. Hey, look, we know our guy tased a 76-year-old guy, but look, we're also really good with kids. Does that work? Can you build trust in the shadow of broken trust? You got to step outside of that shadow. What matters is what you do before the event. Your character will be defined by what you've already done, not by what you intend to do or what you say you're capable of doing. Your character will be defined by what you have done. So what are the keys to success? We must adopt a true model of transparency. And I know you're looking at my slide thinking, what's McDonald's got to do with it? I'll get to it, I promise. We are public servants. How funny that in the very sense of the word is the word public. What does that mean? We are to be in the public. Public servants. We must be transparent. That means we must show what we're about. We must lay ourselves bare to an extent so that people know what we stand for and what we're about and what our character is comprised of, what our capabilities are, what our intent is, and then we must deliver results. I know there's somebody talking here tomorrow about officer safety in Facebook, and look, and I get it, that's genuine concern. Most of us, though, how many of you know cops that you go to their Facebook page, you can't see a profile picture, everything's completely locked down, you won't find anything, right? Is any of you that person? I'm exactly the opposite. If you go to my Facebook page, Chris Guerra, if you go to my Facebook page, you're going to see a lot on there that I have purposely opened up and made public. That doesn't mean I don't make posts that aren't public. But why? Why do I do that? Because I've opened up the things to the public that I want people to see if ever the day comes that I'm the subject of controversy and there's someone looking to define what my character is. Because if I don't define what my character is, somebody else is going to have a void and they're going to define it for me, and I refuse to allow that to happen to me. So if you go to my page, you'll see that I'm a Christian, I love God. I'm a family man, I love my family. I love my community. It's by design, it's true. It is who I am. And if ever someone's questioning why I did what I did, it will be part of the story into who I am, which shapes the type of decisions that I make and how I see the world. Transparency. True transparency. We must reestablish individual identity. Right now, what are your administrators concerned with? They're concerned with, are you an administrator? I saw you smile. Oh. What are they concerned with, right? Maintaining the brand, building the reputation and integrity of the brand, right? That is important, but you are a piece of the brand. Darren Wilson was defined by one event. One event. Tell me what his good police work in the years that he did police work leading up to that event got him. What did it get him? What did his good police work do for him? Nothing, because no one knew about it and you couldn't find it. We cannot continue to allow ourselves to be defined by one event, because every time we do, people are enabled to believe that we are bad people. They write the narrative of our character, and there are too many officers being defined by one event, and their character is defined as that of poison. They should have been given the benefit of the doubt. When people trust you, when they see you as a human, you get that. You are given the benefit of the doubt. Having the benefit of the doubt is the very essence of being human. We must rehumanize ourselves truly. Move beyond brand building. Invest in character building for the individual. Increase and maintain the morale of the individual. I can't go into depth on that simply because I'm running out of time. But you need to look at how can you get their morale up. They need to know they're appreciated. They need supervisors that are going to communicate with them and mentor them and teach them. Establish a clear record of decision making for your people. It is the best thing you can ever do for them. Their personnel file should be filled with good police work, so that the day that somebody comes knocking, you tell them you better get a freaking wagon because you're going to need it when I show you everything this officer's done in their career. It's the ammunition that we can give our administrators to fight for us. I believe this. There are some administrators that want to stand for their people, and they want to say, no, he's a good officer. He made a mistake. He's a good officer, but he deserves the benefit of the doubt. But we don't give them the tools to do that, Because you can't stand on nothing. You have to have something to stand on. Invest in competence building for the individual. Define good police work internally. Increase practical training through mentorship. Focus on building relationships. Can you truly trust someone you don't know? I mean, really. You may trust what I say I'm about, but can you trust me? Who's going to let me babysit their kids tonight? You don't know me. You won't extend that to me. We must allow people, and especially those that we serve, to truly know us in a way that they have not. And then we must maximize social proof. This is where McDonald's comes in. What is social proof? It's a simple concept. If enough people say it's the truth, other people will believe it's the truth. And it will become the truth. Plain and simple. Why then would McDonald's put on their sign, billions and billions served? Why do they put that there? Chances are you don't even notice it. It's a subconscious thing, right? But what are they telling you? Hey, everybody's eating here. Right? Reviews on Amazon, don't lie. Who goes to Amazon and says, give me the highest rated with the most ratings? Right? Social proof. Because we're buying into the thought that if these other people trust it, I can too. You ever see these buttons on websites here? Why do they do that? Why do they do that? It's to tell you, hey, look, other people have found value in this. You will too, and you should share it. Social proof. Some more examples of social proof, but it's no different for us. If you get enough people on your side that truly believe that you can be trusted, that truly believe in what you're doing, they alone can turn the tide. Other people will say, I trust you and you trust them, therefore I trust them. I heard a guy speak one time. If you're listening, whoever you are, guy, I can't ever remember his name, but he was great. He was brilliant. And he taught this. I remember it. Don't remember who he was, but I remember this. And it's so true. If you think about the people that we serve, 10% of the population love us. They always will. You know who I'm talking about, right? Got any badge bunnies in the room? No? Okay, never mind. Another 10% of the population hate us. And they always will, most likely. But it's the people in between that matter. Truly. That's where the battle lies. The other 80% are what we call reflective, meaning what? They are going to reflect what the conversation is for the day. Do you know these people in your own life? That if there's a story about an officer doing something wrong, they're like, oh my God, what is going on in law enforcement today? Oh, something needs to be fixed. But then the next day it's a picture of an officer throwing a football with somebody and they're like, oh, there's still good cops out there. This is great. Anybody know them? Why do they do that? Because they're reflecting. In many ways, people look to other people to tell them how they should feel about something. We've got to get people on our side. You only do that by building relationships and giving them a reason to truly trust in you. I only have a couple minutes left, so I want to round this out by saying I have a concept. I call it Community Policing 2.0. This is what I'm pushing at my department. This is what we're hoping to do. Again, I'm a sergeant, though. There are some other people above me that got to get on board. Fortunately, I've got a chief that is on board. Good police work takes place every single day. If you take that good police work and then you have supervisors that are invested in their people and they say, okay, I'm going to be required to look for good police work, and then I'm going to be required to document what it was about that police work that made it good. I'm going to sit down with that officer and say, hey, I want you to know, today I identified that you did this good police work. You did a great job. And then they take that information and they send it upstairs to the administrators. And they begin to define that officer's character, that officer's work ethic internally with their administrators. Their administrators get to look and say, you know what? The only time I've ever met this guy was whenever I swore him in, but he seems like a pretty good guy. I like old Sergeant Guerra. You're defining that person's integrity, their ethics, their intent, their capabilities. And then that file, that same write-up, just an email, whatever it is, or a form that you create, gets put in that officer's personnel file. which is public record, right? If something goes down, the media can get a hold of that stuff, right? So you put it in there. Then you take that, maybe not every story, but you take that information and you put it out on your social platforms. Now, obviously, you can't flood your Facebook with it, but you can put it on Twitter. You can put it in Nextdoor. You can create Facebook groups to create areas for your city. Like we have zones. We have 5 zones in my city. Imagine if you have a zone, a Facebook group, a private Facebook group for that zone. And then you've got, that's my timer, so sorry. I'm almost done. You've got those zones and you've got those officers in there and you're saying, this is Officer Guerra. He works your zone, and here's what he did today in the area that you live to protect you and keep you safe. And you're consistently putting that out there. You don't have to put a picture of the officer out there, but if you can put a face to it, the better. If not, just putting their name out there and making sure that their good police work is documented and ends up in their personnel file will do more for them than anything you can do for them in their career in this day and age. Do people feel safer or less safe whenever they know that we're out there doing things actively to protect them? How do you think it would make you feel if you knew the officers that worked your area and then you were made aware of the fact that they're not only doing good police work, but their good police work is literally impacting your life directly, and you could have been a victim if it wasn't for that officer? Do you think you're going to start forming a relationship with them? You may never meet or talk to that officer, because guess what? Most of the people that we deal with are turds, right? That's an acronym, by the way. I don't know what, no, they're turds. We call them turds down there. Anyway, you deal with them, right? They're the people that are breaking laws and stuff like that. But the people that you need on your side, most of the time, are you ever going to have contact with them? Unless you see them at an event or something like that? No. So you've got to establish a relationship with the people that matter that you might not normally be able to have. Your officers, they'll say, I don't want to be on there. But then what happens when they go on there and they read about their good police work and they see all the comments that come across? You think that's going to do something for their morale? They'll fight you tooth and nail. I don't want to be on there. But then they'll go and they'll read every freaking comment and make sure they get more positive feedback than the other person they're working with. Their morale will reflect in how they serve people. The officer's no longer defined by one single event. Now the officer can't just disappear without anybody noticing. People become attached to him. If that officer no longer works there, people start asking questions. What happened to this officer? And when your answer is, well, they left for more money, they left for this, they left for that, that's when people start asking questions. That's when they start getting things done in your city. They go to their city council. Then, lastly, the supervisor uses those examples of good police work in shift briefings to say, this was good police work, this is what made it good, and this is the standard. Over time, it becomes much more clear what's acceptable for your agency and what officers should aspire to. Again, officer safety. It's a choice. Look, you got to be smart about it, but it's a calculated risk. I am more likely, I believe this, to make a decision that causes me to be brought into controversy than I am to be shot dead. So I'm going to do what I can to protect myself and define my character before I'm ever in that position. And then you got to get the officers on board. What I'll leave you with is this: if we don't change the way that we think about this and the way that we do things, somebody else is going to change it for us. Tell me if you recognize any of these. These are ideas being brought forth from the private sector because they believe we're broken and we can't fix ourselves. So they're searching for solutions, and every time they do, they come up with something that's not in our best interest. Anybody lost your military equipment for over-militarization of police? There was a reason we had it. We don't have it anymore. Obama wants us to have softer-looking uniforms. There was a rumor that they wanted them to be purple, but that wasn't true. This is my favorite one. A practical solution: run police departments like fire departments, because that'll work. So remember, if we don't change the way that we approach this and the way that we do things, somebody else is going to change it for us. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you for the honor of being here. If anybody ever needs me, there's my contact info.
Okay, folks, we're winding down. We saved, I don't want to, just about to say, we saved the best for last, but I don't mean to diss everyone that came before. But we do have our...
Look, I know I'm the only thing standing between you and booze. You know, that's the way it goes. So the next 2.5 hours are going to fly right by. I swear to God, they are. Just sit back, relax, enjoy the ride here. So first of all, thanks, Lori. Look, I'm going to show you a couple things here, but today I'm going to give you a little bit of different thing. We talk about social media, and social media really a lot is about context, right? The context you put it in, what it can be used for. So my quick social media story dealing with context had nothing to do with social media, but if social media